Good day, everyone. Today, I present to you the powerful African epic, The Pride Before the Fall, the Saga of Banji Obi. This is the unforgettable life story of a man whose journey teaches us about ambition, pride, loss, faith, and redemption. Born in 1937 in Onitsha, Banji Obi grew up with humble roots, his father a trader, his mother a teacher. From childhood, he was full of energy, restless, and ambitious. After the Civil War, Banji longed for more than village life. He left for Lagos, where he joined Kilowatt International, a major soap company. With brilliance and determination, he rose quickly in sales, earning respect and recognition. But pride and weakness became his shadow. In Uganda, he fathered a son, Banji Jr. In Switzerland, he built a new family with Christiana, gaining wealth, education, and influence. Yet his appetite for success and women pulled him away from responsibility. When an old friend lured him back to Nigeria with promises of quick riches, betrayal struck. His wealth crumbled, Christiana left with their children, and Banji fell into decades of wilderness, poverty, rejection, and despair. Yet just when hope seemed buried, prophecy spoke. In his old age, after years of prayer and endurance, Banji reunited with the son he abandoned years earlier. Slowly, his lost children returned, forgiveness was found, and the family rebuilt what had been broken. Banji lived his final years surrounded by peace, telling stories under the mango tree, teaching that pride leads to downfall, but humility leads to redemption. The lesson is timeless. No matter how far we fall, God's mercy and human forgiveness can still raise us again. Banji Obi's life is not just a story, it is a proverb, a song, a warning, and a testimony. It is a proverb, a song, a warning, and a testimony.
Scene 1. Banji's birth and family background. The night Banji Obi was born, the moon wore its brightest face. It hung over Onitsha like a calabash lamp in the sky, watching silently as though it too awaited the new life about to step into the world. The wind carried the smell of the Niger River, damp earth, fish smoke, and palm wine to the Obi compound where midwives sang songs older than memory. When a child comes, the earth must smile, drums must speak, the ancestors must rise and drink, for life has walked among us again. Inside the mud brick house, Mama Agnes groaned as the midwives worked around her with the calmness of women who had caught life from the hands of fate many times before. A clay lamp burned in the corner, shadows dancing across the walls like restless spirits. Outside, Paobi, trader of palm oil and kola nuts, paced the courtyard like a restless leopard. His big frame cut through the moonlight as he muttered to no one in particular. Let it be a son this time. The spirits know the Obi lineage must not end with me. When the baby's cry finally rose into the night air, sharp and insistent, the midwife stepped out, sweat shining on her arms, and announced, "It is a boy." The courtyard erupted. Paobi threw his cap in the air and shouted so loudly that even neighbors 2 compounds away clapped and laughed. The elders who had been invited for the birth nodded slowly, their eyes carrying both joy and caution. The oldest among them, Papa Nana, cleared his throat and spoke with the slow weight of wisdom. A child born on a full moon night will either be a king or a story told with sighs. 8 days later, the Obi compound came alive. Drummers beat rhythms that made even the old women sway on tired feet. Pots of yam porridge and goat meat bubbled over fires. Palm wine calabashes passed from hand to hand, and laughter rolled like distant thunder. The boy was named Banji, short for Oluom Banji, meaning God has added to me. As custom demanded, Papa Nana lifted the child before the crowd and said, "This child has come on the back of the wind. He will walk far, but let him remember, the tortoise said, the world is wide, yet it is the hunter's rope that ends its journey." Scene 2. Childhood, mischief, and village life. Banji Obi grew like yam vines in rainy season, strong, fast, and with a mind of his own. By the time he could run, he was already known across the village as the boy who feared nothing. He chased chickens until they flapped and scattered. He climbed mango trees taller than the school bell tower, ignoring his mother's shouts, "Banji, come down before you break your father's roof or your bones." He would laugh, stuffing 3 mangoes into his shirt before jumping down like a small hunter, bringing home meat. At the Onitsha market, where his father sold palm oil and fish, Banji became both helper and nuisance. One day, a furious trader woman shouted, "Obi, tie this your son before he turns my stall into wrestling ground." The market drummers teased him with a song, "Banji boy with feet of fire, chasing goats, chasing trouble. One day the goat will chase you back." At the missionary school where Mama Agnes taught, Banji learned his ABCs reluctantly. While other children repeated, A for apple, B for ball, Banji's eyes wandered to the lizards sunning themselves on the windowsill. When his mother caught him drawing faces in the sand instead of writing letters, she raised her cane. "Mama," he cried, "the Bible says spare the rod and spoil the child." The class exploded with laughter. "The same Bible also says obey your parents," she replied, and gave him 2 quick strokes. Evenings in the village carried a magic Banji never forgot. Fires crackled, crickets sang, and the moon climbed slowly into the sky. This was the time for tales by moonlight. Papa Nana's voice would float above the children. Long ago, when animals could speak, the tortoise boasted he was wiser than all. He heard the sky was falling and carried a calabash to hold it up. But greed made him stop to steal corn. The sky fell while he was eating and crushed his shell into pieces. That is why the tortoise's shell is broken till today. Another afternoon sealed Banji's reputation. A neighbor's goat had been destroying his mother's cassava leaves. Banji tied a calabash to its tail and set it loose. The goat, terrified by the clanging noise, bolted through the village square, scattering women, children, and a basket of ripe plantains. The owner wailed, the elders laughed. The child who ties a goat's tail today will one day meet a lion on the road. That evening, Paobi sat him by the fire and said, "Banji, the world does not bow for the reckless. A man must have sense, not just speed." Banji poked the fire with the stick and nodded half-heartedly. "Yes, Papa, but the world is big. I will run faster than it can catch me." The old man sighed. The chick that runs from the mother's wings may end in the hawk's claws. Scene 3. Folktales, Ambition, and War Clouds. The year Banji turned 13, a traveling storyteller camped at the edge of the market. He wore a raffia hat, carried a wooden staff carved with birds, and spoke with a voice like a drum. Children gathered, coins clinked, and even the traders leaned on their stalls to listen. "Hear this," he began. "There was once a fisherman who dreamed of catching a golden fish. Every day he rowed farther from shore, ignoring the waves that warned him not to go too far. One morning he found the fish, bright as the sun. He reached for it, and the sea snatched his canoe. The villagers later found the fish on the beach, but never the fisherman." After the crowd dispersed, Banji walked beside the stranger. "Was the fisherman foolish?" he asked. The man shrugged. "Dreams are not foolish, but a dream without a paddle is a good way to drown." He tapped his staff twice and vanished into the smoke of roasting plantains. Banji began to wake before dawn, standing on the river bank to watch the ferries cross. He traced routes with a stick on the sand: Onitsha to Asaba, Asaba to Benin, Benin to Lagos. The names tasted like sugar on his tongue. Lagos. He could hear the city humming inside him like bees inside a gourd. His friends laughed at his maps. "Big Obi," Chike said. "You draw lines like a schoolmaster. Come and play football." But Banji kept sketching roads. He wanted a life with more teeth than the village could offer. When the rains failed one season, hunger came into homes like an uninvited relative. Prices climbed, tempers shortened. At night, the elders met under the Udala tree. Men spoke in low tones about politics, elections, soldiers. A rumor trickled like a cold stream through the village. War was coming. On market day, soldiers passed through, boots thudding like pestles. Mothers pulled children close, traders pushed baskets under tables. Banji watched, fascinated by their rifles and the way they walked as if the earth belonged to them. That night, he dreamed of a great bird with iron feathers. It flew over Onitsha and dropped shadows that swallowed houses. He woke sweating and told his mother. She touched his forehead and said, "Not all dreams need telling, my son. Some are better buried in the morning's broom." School became a place of whispers. Lessons stopped mid-sentence when a distant explosion rolled across the plains. Some boys vanished from class, taken by uncles to safer towns or by the fever of bravado to follow soldiers. The chalkboard filled with half-finished sums and dates that meant nothing to the new calendar of fear. On a grey afternoon, Banji found a cracked calabash by the river. He turned it in his hands and thought of the tortoise's tail. He brought it home and hung it above his sleeping mat. For wisdom, he told his sister. She laughed. Wisdom does not live in a cracked gourd. Banji smiled. Perhaps it escaped from one. Scene 4. War, loss, and the road towards Lagos. The war arrived not with a trumpet, but with shortages. Salt disappeared first, then kerosene, then good news. The radio spoke in two tongues, hope in the morning, grief at night. Men lined up for enlistment, women lined up for rations. The market that sung now murmured like a sick child. Classes were suspended. The school bell rusted on its rope. Banji helped his father carry baskets at dawn to whatever checkpoint would let traders pass. Sometimes they crossed, sometimes the soldiers took the goods with a shrug that said the nation had bigger stomachs to fill. One day, Paobi returned late, shirt torn, eyes cloudy. He sat by the door and said nothing. Mama Agnes washed his feet and hummed a hymn as if music could stitch a man back together. After a long silence, he whispered, "A road that used to know my name refused me today." Banji learned to keep quiet when grown men stared at the horizon with empty bowls. He learned to sleep through gunfire the way children in other countries sleep through rain. He learned that some questions have no mouth during wartime. Yet,
he told Chike one evening, "When this smoke clears, I will leave. Lagos is calling." Chike kicked at a stone. "And what of Onitsha?" Banji looked at the river. "I will always have its water in my blood. But I was not born to drown where I learned to swim." On the last market day before the fighting pushed closer, Banji carried his cracked calabash to the riverbank. He dipped it into the water and watched as it filled and leaked at the same time. He laughed softly. "That is how life is," he said, "to no one and to everyone." The moon climbed a thin ladder of clouds. From across the water, a fairy horn moaned like a cow that had lost its calf. Banji stood, squared his shoulders, and whispered a promise into the wind. "I will go where my name is still a door." When he turned to leave, the river muttered its patient reply, a long silver tongue letting him go. Behind him, the village slept, dreaming of mornings that would take time to arrive. Ahead, a road waited, red and dusty, pointing toward a city that devours and crowns in the same breath. The Pride Before the Fall, the Saga of Banji Obi. Chapter 2, The Seeds of Ambition. Complete, expanded edition. Scene 1, The Hunger Years After War. After the Biafra War ended, Onitsha bore scars deeper than bullet holes. Roofs sagged, markets stood half-burned, and families counted losses, not in coins, but in graves. Paobi's once thriving palm oil trade limped like a wounded goat. Soldiers still patrolled certain roads, their boots pounding out a rhythm of fear. Banji, now a lanky teenager, carried baskets for his father.
his eyes already searching for horizons beyond ruined streets. One evening by the fire, Pa Obi muttered, "The war has ended, but peace walks with a limp." Mama Agnes, washing utensils, replied softly, "Peace limping is better than war running." Scene 2. Village Elders' Wisdom. Under the Udala tree, the village elders met again. Smoke from their pipes curled upward, as if carrying their words to the ancestors. Old Papa Nana told a tale. A man once planted yams and watered them with wine instead of rainwater. He wanted them to grow quickly. They grew, yes, but only leaves, no tubers. The men laughed, nodding, as the old man added, "A man who hurries to eat palm kernels may swallow stones." Banji sat at the edge of the gathering, listening but restless. He wanted more than wisdom. He wanted walls taller than palm trees, streets louder than market squares. Scene 3. The Turning Point. One dry season afternoon, news came with the traders. Lagos was booming again. Men returned wearing shoes that clicked like typewriters and shirts smelling of foreign starch. At the palm wine tapper's hut, Chike told Banji, "Big Obi, Lagos is a place where even the air smells of money." Banji's heart beat faster. He imagined streets lined with electric lights instead of lanterns, markets where English mixed with Igbo and Yoruba like stew on the fire. That night, Pa Obi warned him, "Ambition is good, my son, but the road to wealth is full of abandoned sandals." Banji nodded, but saw only gold ahead. Scene 4. Preparations to leave. Banji worked odd jobs, carrying traders' loads, clearing bush paths, even pounding yam for wedding feasts. Every coin he saved was a drumbeat toward departure. Mama Agnes, folding his few clothes into a raffia bag, told him, "The city gives with one hand and takes with two. Remember who you are." On the evening before he left, neighbors gathered. Some sang old songs of farewell. Others shook their heads, muttering about youth and quick dreams. Papa Nana, leaning on his staff, said, "The hawk flies high, but it drinks from the same stream as the hen. Do not forget your stream, Banji." The Pride Before the Fall, the Saga of Banji Obi. Chapter 3. The Road to Lagos. Complete, expanded edition. Scene 1. First Impressions of Lagos. The rickety bus coughed its way from Onitsha toward Lagos, groaning like an old man climbing a hill. Passengers sang hymns, a preacher shouted about repentance, and traders clutched baskets of kola nuts, smoked fish, and bush mango seeds. Banji sat by the window, watching villages blur into forests, forests into farmlands, and finally the long roads toward the city of dreams. At each stop, hawkers thrust roasted corn, boiled groundnuts, and oranges through the windows, shouting prices in voices sharpened by survival. When the bus finally rolled into Lagos, the city hit Banji's senses at once. Yellow buses hawking like angry geese, streets alive with Yoruba, Igbo, English, and Pidgin clashing like cymbals, markets where fried plantain smoke curled into the hot afternoon sky. Scene 2. Kilo Weight International. Kilo Weight International stood near the marina, a modest building with walls the color of old newspaper. Yet inside, it buzzed with ambition and commerce. Banji began as a sales clerk, filing invoices and carrying samples of soap and detergent to shop owners across the city. He wore the same 2 shirts in rotation, but polished his shoes until they shone like river stones. The day he received his first salary, he held the notes in both hands, staring as though they were magic charms. He sent some to Mama Agnes, writing on the envelope, "From your son in Lagos, the city where dreams have legs." His co-workers teased him for his energy. "Big Obi," one said, "you walk like the boss already owes him his chair." Banji only laughed. He could feel the city stretching his ambitions wider than the lagoon. Scene 3. temptations of city life. But Lagos was not only work. Market women with bright headscarves teased him when he passed. Fine Bobo, they called, waving roasted plantains. Banji grinned, his pockets growing fatter with each month. At night, he followed friends to beer parlors, where high-life music throbbed through smoky rooms. Laughter, dancing, and the clink of bottles wrapped the evenings like festival cloth. And yet sometimes, Mama Agnes's words returned to him. The city gives with one hand and takes with two. He remembered, but not always. Youth often mistakes echoes for whispers. One evening, an older colleague warned him, "Obi, Lagos women have eyes like river currents. Smooth on the surface, deep below. Swim carefully." Banji only smiled. The kind of smile young men wear when advice enters one ear and slips out the other. Scene 4. The city dream grows. Months passed. Banji learned the bus routes, the market rhythms, the names of shop owners from Idumota to Yaba. His sales numbers climbed, his confidence grew taller than the cocoa house in Ibadan. One night, staring at the ceiling of his small rented room, he whispered to himself, "One day they will not call me Big Obi. They will call me Mr. Obi." Outside, Lagos roared like a restless lion. The city of hustlers, dreamers, and drifters. Banji felt certain it would crown him king one day. But the elders say, the tree that grows tallest is the first to meet the wind, and already winds far beyond Lagos were gathering. The Pride Before the Fall, the Saga of Banji Obi. Chapter 4. Kilo Weight and the Whispers of Women. Complete, expanded edition. Scene 1. Rise at Kilo Weight International. Banji's numbers rose like the tide. Month after month, Kilo Weight International watched this young man break sales records across Lagos. His energy was a storm, his smile a key that opened shop doors from Idumuta to Mushin. At company meetings, when figures were read, Banji's name shone like the noon sun. He bought his first radio, then a bicycle, then better shoes. He began to walk with the confidence of a man whose future had started knocking. Scene 2. The whispers begin. But success brings whispers the way ripe fruit brings flies. Secretaries giggled when he passed. Traders' wives eyed him at markets. Even some colleagues began to murmur, "Big Obi is eating with kings now." At the beer parlor near the marina, a woman with eyes like wet season clouds told him, "Fine man like you should not be drinking here with ordinary people." He smiled, but said nothing. Yet inside, him preened its feathers. Praise, like palm wine, can sweeten and intoxicate at the same time. The elders say the ear that loves praise will follow it into the bush. And already, Banji's ears were stretching. Scene 3. Nights of high-life music. Friday nights in Lagos had a beat-heart of drums and guitars. High-life music floated through open windows. Laughter.
Scene 3. Nights of high-life music. Friday nights in Lagos had a heartbeat of drums and guitars. High-life music floated through open windows. Laughter spilled from dance halls where women in bright dresses swayed like river reeds. Banji followed friends into this nightlife, where money left pockets as quickly as songs left lips. He began to wear cologne, to drink foreign beer, to dance with women whose bangles clinked like wind chimes. Once Mr. Pierre warned him, "Obi, success is a fine wine. Too much, and it will drown you." Banji only grinned. Young men believe warnings are for other people. At night, returning to his small rented room, he sometimes remembered Mama Agnes's words, "The city gives with one hand and takes with two." He remembered, but not always. Scene 4. Foreshadowing the fall.
By the second year at Kilo Weight International, Banji was promoted to regional sales supervisor. His name carried weight. His pockets carried money. His heart carried both ambition and temptation. Some colleagues whispered, "This big Obi, one day he will own this company." Others whispered different things. One day, women will be his downfall. But Banji walked as though the road ahead had no holes, as though life owed him only sunshine. The elders say, the lizard that jumps from the tall irokoko says it will praise itself if no one else will. Banji, like that lizard, had begun to nod at his own shadow. The Pride Before the Fall, the Saga of Banji Obi. Chapter 5, Uganda and the Son of Sorrow, complete, expanded edition. Scene 1, Journey to Uganda. When Kilo Weight International posted Banji to Uganda to open a new sales branch, he felt the earth itself was widening beneath his feet. Lagos had given him ambition. Uganda would give him wings. Colleagues clapped his back. "Big Obi," they said, "soon you will be selling soap to kings." Banji grinned, already dreaming of promotions, foreign trips, perhaps even a seat among directors. The flight to Entebbe crossed over green hills, winding rivers, and villages with red roofs glinting in the African sun. Banji pressed his forehead to the window, whispering to himself, "From Onitsha to the world." Scene 2, Meeting Miriam Barugu. In Kampala, the air smelled of coffee beans and fresh rain. It was there he met Miriam Barugu, a girl with eyes like midnight rivers and laughter that shook dust from the heart. She worked at a stationery shop near Banji's office. The first time he greeted her, she smiled slowly, as if to decide whether to let the sun shine through the clouds. They began to walk together after work, past markets glowing with kerosene lamps, past street drummers whose rhythms followed them like curious birds. One evening, as they watched the sun sink behind the hills, Miriam told him, "Life is like this sun. It rises, it falls, but it never forgets to return." Banji looked at her and thought perhaps he had found something worth returning to. Scene 3, The Son of Sorrow is born. But fate is a drummer with many rhythms. Months later, Miriam told Banji she was expecting a child. His heart thumped like festival drums, half with pride, half with fear. When the boy was born, Banji held the tiny bundle and named him Banji Obi Jr. He wrote to Mama Agnes in Nigeria, "Your grandson has come strong as the Niger current." Yet even as the child grew, Banji's work pulled him across borders. Meetings, sales trips, reports, his ambition marched ahead while fatherhood limped behind. The elders say the hunter who chases two antelopes will lose both. But Banji was not listening. Scene 4, Miriam's death and Banji's restlessness. Tragedy struck like lightning on a clear day. Miriam fell ill one rainy season and never rose again. The women wailed, the hills echoed their grief. At her burial, village singers chanted, "Life is a market, we come to trade and leave at sunset." Banji stood by the grave, the child in his arms, feeling the world tilt. For a few weeks he stayed, helping Miriam's mother care for the baby. But soon letters from Lagos began to arrive, reports, requests, reminders of targets missed. Restlessness gnawed at him. One evening he told Miriam's mother, "I will return after work calls me to Nigeria." She nodded, but said nothing. The boy clung to his leg, too young to know a door was closing. The elders say, when a man walks too often, home becomes a stranger. Banji boarded the plane with briefcases full of plans, leaving behind the son who would one day become a question life would demand answers for. The Pride Before the Fall, the Saga of Banji Obi. Chapter 6, Switzerland, Fortune's Fake Smile. Complete, expanded edition. Scene 1. Arrival in Switzerland. Switzerland greeted Banji with cold air and tidy streets, so different from the humid markets of Lagos and the noisy buses of Kampala. The mountains stood aloof, white with snow, as though they had never heard of war or dust or poverty. Kiloweight International had sent him for training, sales strategies, leadership seminars, international networking. Banji walked through Zurich in his only winter coat, feeling the world was opening its gates wider and wider. At night in his small rented apartment, he wrote letters home. "Mama, your son now lives where the air tastes like ice and the trains run like clockwork." Training turned into promotions. Promotions turned into pay raises. Soon, Banji was managing West African sales from Europe, signing papers in boardrooms where accents mixed like spices in a trader's pot. He bought suits that smelled of foreign wool, shoes that clicked on marble floors, watches that winked under electric lights. Letters home carried photographs. Banji beside lakes. Banji before cathedrals. Banji shaking hands with men whose names began with Von and De. Mama Agnes showed the photos to neighbors. "My son," she said, "eats bread with butter now, not just yam and palm oil." Scene 4. Fortune's Fake Smile. Christiana bore him 2 children, Beatrix with her mother's green eyes, Daniel with Banji's restless smile. Photographs showed a family picnicking by lakes, skiing on white hills, visiting museums where statues frowned wisely from marble corners. Banji completed his master's degree, then a PhD, his certificates framed on walls that smelled of polished wood and ambition. But the elders say, the wind laughs before it breaks the branch. Fortune was smiling, yes, but some smiles have teeth behind them. Some nights, when the trains howled through Zurich like distant wolves, Banji dreamed of Nigeria, of a cracked calabash by the Niger River, of a boy he had left in Uganda. He always woke before the dream ended. The Pride Before the Fall, the Saga of Banji Obi, Chapter 7, The Fall of the Iroquois, complete, expanded edition. Scene 1. Emega's Arrival and Promises. One summer evening in Zurich, as Banji and Christiana hosted friends on their balcony, a familiar voice called his name from the street below. It was Emeka, his old friend from Onitsha, the one who once shared roasted corn with him near the Niger River before life scattered them like dry leaves. Emeka now wore flashy suits and spoke with the urgency of a man who had seen gold somewhere and wanted partners before the ground swallowed it again. "Banji," he said over drinks that night, "Nigeria is flowing with money. Cement contracts, import licenses, government deals. 3 months and you will be richer than these Europeans who work like ants." Banji listened, his heart drumming. Europe had given him comfort. Nigeria, Emeka promised, would give him a crown. But Christiana watched Emeka with the eyes of a woman who trusted her instincts more than men's words. "Banji, this friend of yours speaks like the wind, loud today, gone tomorrow." Banji laughed, pouring another drink. "My dear, this is business talk. You won't understand. Men like Emeka know where fortunes hide." She touched his arm. "Just remember, when the drumbeat changes, the dancer must watch his steps." Banji kissed his forehead, but had already decided. The dancer heard only the music, not the warning. Scene 3. The Return to Nigeria. Banji told his company he was taking a short leave. 3 weeks only, he assured Christiana, packing his suits, his certificates, his dreams of quick wealth. The plane landed in Lagos, and the heat slapped him like an impatient creditor. Emeka was waiting, all handshakes and promises. They drove past billboards advertising beer, cement, and politicians' faces.
They drove past billboards advertising beer, cement, and politicians' faces smiling like borrowed suns. Emeka spoke of contracts waiting for signatures, ships waiting at the port, bank managers waiting with loans. But the elders say, the fish that follows the shiny lure does not see the hook. Scene 4. The first storms. Weeks passed. Meetings led to more meetings, papers to more papers. The promised contracts dissolved like salt in rainwater. One morning, Emeka vanished. His rented office was locked, his phone rang unanswered. Banji stood outside holding documents now as useless as broken paddles in a flooded river. He called Christiana from Lagos, voice heavy with dust and regret, but the number did not connect. A neighbor later wrote that she had left for America with the children, carrying suitcases and silence. The elders say, the tree that forgets its roots will meet the storm alone. Banji looked at the empty street where Emeka once stood and realized the winds had begun to rise. The Pride Before the Fall, the Saga of Banji Obi. Chapter 8, The Wilderness Years, Complete, Expanded Edition. Scene 1, Betrayal Complete. After Emeka's disappearance, Banji walked the streets of Lagos like a man chasing his own shadow. The contracts had vanished, the money gone, Christiana unreachable. Letters to Switzerland came back unanswered. A neighbor finally wrote, "Your wife left for America. She took the children. We do not know more." Banji sat on a borrowed mattress in a noisy Lagos flat, staring at the ceiling fan spinning like time mocking him. The man who once signed deals in Geneva now counted coins for dinner. The elders say the hunter who boasts before the kill may return with an empty quiver. Banji had returned with nothing. Scene 2. Years of Silence. The 1980s crept in with its radios blaring juju music and its streets filling with soldiers and second-hand cars. Banji stayed in relatives' houses where the welcome cooled after the first week. Cousins whispered, this was the man from Europe? Children mocked his worn shoes. He rose early to fetch water, swept compounds, and vanished before visitors arrived. Sometimes he sold small items in the market. Other times he sat in church halls through long vigils, head bowed, listening to pastors preach about Job and affliction. One rainy night, after a sermon on the prodigal son, Banji told the preacher, "Father, some sons do not even have pig food to eat." The man prayed for him anyway. Scene 4. Searching for Children. Banji wrote letters to American addresses he found in old diaries, but none came back with replies. He asked travelers, embassy clerks, missionaries. No one knew Christiana or the children. Sometimes he sat under the mango tree in the village, asking strangers if they had been to America, as though the whole country was one street where news traveled by foot. The boy in Uganda grew older too, somewhere far away, carrying his father's name but not his father's presence. The elders say, when a man walks too far from his compound, even his own footprints forget him. Scene 4. Faith in the Dust. By the 1990s, Banji was a familiar figure at evening rosaries, clutching a tattered Bible, his once proud shoulders bent like tired palm fronds. He told anyone who cared to listen, "God has not abandoned me. I am only Job waiting for the last chapter." Some believed him, others nodded politely and moved on. At night he prayed, for the son in Uganda, for the children in America, for Christiana, for Emeka, for himself. He prayed until prayer became the only language he spoke fluently. But heaven was silent.
the years stacked like dusty hymn books. The man who once moved through airports now waited for miracles that missed their flights.
Chapter 9: Prophecy and Promise. Complete Expanded Edition. Scene 1: The Sacred Heart Meeting. One Sunday evening, the Sacred Heart of Jesus Society gathered in the parish hall, candles flickering like stars brought down to earth. Banji sat near the back, his face lined with years of disappointment, clutching his rosary like a man holding the last rope across a river. After the prayers, Mama Catherine, a woman known for dreams that sometimes walked into reality, stood up. "Brother Banji," she said, "last night I saw a vision. Your children will find you before you leave this world." Mamas filled the hall. Some nodded, others crossed themselves. Banji only closed his eyes, whispering, "Lord, even crumbs from your table will be enough for me." Scene 2: A letter from Cameroon. Weeks later, a trader returning from Cameroon brought news. "There is a man there," he told Banji, "who carries your name. He works at the port. People say his mother came from Uganda." Banji's heart slammed like a door in the wind. He asked, "My son, after 40 years?" The trader shrugged. "Blood follows its own river, even when the map forgets it." For nights, Banji could not sleep. He prayed longer, bargained harder with heaven. "Let me see him once," he whispered. "Even if he spits on my grave after, let me see him." Scene 3: The Phone Number. One evening, as Harmattan winds scratched the sky pale, a man named Theophilus Mbakwe visited Banji. They had once crossed paths in Onitsha before destiny scattered them like millet seeds. Theophilus said, "I walked at the docks in Douala. I saw your son. He's called Banji Obi Jr. I told him about you. He gave me this number." Banji held the paper as though it were a newborn child. That night, he rehearsed what he would say, but his tongue tangled around 40 years of AdSense. Scene 4: First Call, First Storm. The next afternoon, Banji borrowed a neighbor's phone and dialed the number with trembling fingers. A man's voice answered. "Who is this?" Banji said, This is your father." There was a long silence, then the voice erupted like thunder. "Father, after 40 years, you remember you have a son now." Banji tried to speak, but the line went dead. He called again, no answer. That night, he sat outside his room, the moon climbing slowly, as though even it felt ashamed to watch him break.
Banji tried to speak, but the line went dead. He called again. No answer. That night he sat outside his room, the moon climbing slowly, as though even it felt ashamed to watch him break. The Pride Before the Fall, the Saga of Banji Obi. Chapter 10: Reunion and Redemption. Complete Expanded Edition. Scene 1: The Unexpected Call. It was a Sunday morning in 2010. The church bells had just finished their metal prayers when Banji's borrowed phone rang. He almost didn't answer. Numbers from abroad carried both hope and heartbreak, but the voice on the line said, "This is Banji Obi Jr. I'm in Lagos with my wife. We want to see you." Banji sat down slowly on the church steps, the world tilting. Some parishioners nearby asked, "Papa Banji, are you all right?" He only nodded, tears stinging like pepper soup in his eyes. The elders say, when the wind finally brings the kite home, even the children run to watch. That Sunday, the wind was kind at last. Scene 2: The Airport Meeting. Banji arrived at Murtala Muhammad Airport wearing his best shirt, the one he saved for Christmas Mass. He looked around nervously as planes roared like impatient gods above. Then he saw them. A tall man with his mother's eyes, a young woman holding his hand. Banji knew before he was told. Blood calls to blood even after 40 years. They stood facing each other for a long moment. Then Banji Jr. said, quietly, "Papa." The word cracked open a dam inside Banji's chest. He held his son, both of them shaking like trees in a first rain. Travelers stopped to watch. Some clapped softly as though reunion itself was holy. Scene 3: Coming home. They drove to the small house where Banji lived. Neighbors gathered, whispering as the car stopped. "Is it true?" they asked each other. After 40 years. Inside, Banji Jr. handed his father a small envelope. Papa, you will not suffer again. We will rebuild what was lost. Banji opened it later. Money, photos of grandchildren, a ticket to visit them abroad. That night the family ate rice cooked with more laughter than salt. Someone brought palm wine. Someone else began a song of thanksgiving. Banji listened as the lyrics rose into the Harmattan sky. Scene 4. Redemption's Promise. In the weeks that followed, Banji received calls from America. Beatrix and Daniel, the children Christiana had taken, wanted to come to Nigeria. One evening, Christiana herself called. Her voice was hesitant, like a door creaking after years of rust. Banji, she said, I told them you were dead. I was angry, but the truth has come back like a stubborn goat. Banji closed his eyes. Let the children come, he said simply. The river does not reject water, no matter how late the rain arrives. The elders say, when the prodigal returns, even the earth wears white cloth. Banji felt the first peace he had known in decades. The Pride Before the Fall, the Saga of Banji Obi. Chapter 11. Reflections of an Old Man, complete, expanded edition. Scene 1. Life under the mango tree. Banji now spent his evenings under the mango tree in the compound his children had built for him. The house stood proud, its walls painted the color of ripe papaw, a sharp contrast to the rusted zinc roofs where he had once squatted in Lagos. Children ran around the yard chasing each other with laughter like bells. Goats bleated lazily under the fence. Banji watched them all, his heart a calabash filled with gratitude. The neighbors often gathered to hear him speak. Tell us about Europe, they would say. Tell us about Lagos. Tell us about life. Banji would smile, stroking his grey beard. My children, he said, life is like a market. Some go home with baskets full, others with baskets broken. I have carried both. The elders say, the tortoise that boasts of its speed will meet the road that has no end. Banji told them he had been that tortoise once. Scene 3. Conversations with the priest. Sometimes Father Augustine visited after evening mass. The priest loved sitting under the mango tree, sipping palm wine slowly, listening to Banji stories. Papa Banji, he said one night, do you regret it all? Banji looked at the stars before answering. Regret? A man who falls into a river learns two things, the depth of the water and the value of dry land. I regret nothing, Father. I have learned both. Father Augustine nodded. And faith? Banji smiled. Faith is the canoe that brought me out. I would have drowned without it. Scene 4. The Weight of Memory. At night, Banji sometimes dreamed of Miriam Burugu, Christiana, Emeka, the streets of Zurich, the markets of Lagos, the river of Onitsha. All the faces and places returned like travelers arriving late to a feast. But the dreams no longer carried sorrow. They came like old friends, bringing both laughter and sighs. He told his grandchildren, do not fear mistakes. Fear only the pride that refuses to rise after falling.